Hello students, welcome to the chemistry session. So I hope everybody is doing fine. So what I've brought for you today, a set of 10 questions which we are going to perform together for this chapter, is matter around us pure? So basically what we are going to discuss over here is a pattern of questions starting from 1 mark, 2 mark, 3 mark and 5 mark. So we'll be going according to that, and I'm expecting that each one of you have revised the entire concept. So let's move on to the question number 1. As the instructions say over here, question number 1 to 2 will be of 1 mark, so you have to answer it accordingly. One-liners. A 15% solution of alcohol, what does that mean? So what is the 15% solution? We have actually discussed that, mass percent, volume percent, yes. So 15% means, see here, they are actually asking about the volume percent, fine. So 15 ml will be dissolved in the 100 ml. That is what the volume percent is. That is the volume of solute divided by the total volume of solution. Fine. And into 100 will give us the percentage. Fine. So not 85, that means they are just giving us of the volume of the solvent, which is incorrect. Okay. We have to choose option number B. Cool? Okay. So that was question number 1, and we have represented this as one-liner. You can just write down the formula just in order to represent an explanation over here. Now question number 2, what is meant by saying that the metals are malleable and ductile? Okay. So the metals are malleable means, see here, if you have confusion in these two terms, what you can do is, you know what duct is? Duct means a wire, fine. So that will clear out all your doubts that it can be drawn into wires. Whereas the metals are malleable, that means one can be drawn into wires, the another can be in the form of sheets. So that is known as the malleability. So can be beaten into sheets. Can be beaten into sheets. Fine. Okay. Got it? Okay. So that completes question number 2 as well, and this was a pretty easy question. You just need to remember what all terms do they have. Now the next one. Question number 3 to 5, 2 mark question. Which of the following will show the Tyndall effect and why? Okay. So what is basically Tyndall effect? Can you give me an idea? So Tyndall effect is whenever, let's say we take an example of a solution, okay. Maybe, I don't know what kind of a solution is that. It may be heterogeneous, it may be homogeneous. Let us put this solution into the dark. I need to have the torchlight over here. If the path is visible of the light through this particular solution, that means there must be particles which is guiding the path of the light, fine. That means the entire solution is not uniform. There are certain particles which are deflecting the light somehow, okay, and that is known as the Tyndall effect. So one is salt solution. You must have seen salt solution. Have you ever tried or observed any light passing through that salt solution? No, it is completely uniform solution, proper homogeneous solution. No particles visible. No particles visible, and in fact not just the visibility of particles, but no ray of light, that path is visible. So no Tyndall effect, so it will not show Tyndall effect. Starch solution. Starch solution, again it's a kind of a colloid. It's a kind of a colloid, and it's usually known as sol. Sol means some solid particles in liquid, they are dispersed in the liquid, so that is a sol, fine. And whenever you see a colloid, it is definitely be going to show the Tyndall effect. It will show Tyndall effect. Milk, again it's a kind of a colloid. I hope everybody has studied this. This was a little table given in NCERT, if you have observed. Colloid, but known as emulsion. That means some fat particles are dissolved in the liquid, and that is how we get an emulsion, fine. Emulsion, again it will show the Tyndall effect. Yes, so this will show copper sulfate solution. So as I told you that copper sulfate solution is that blue beautiful solution with water. But you know, it's just like a salt solution, it's completely clear and transparent. There is no point of discussion that the path of the light will be visible through it, okay? Because no particles are actually visible. So it will, okay, yeah, it will not show the Tyndall effect. These two will not, these two will. Fine, got it? Okay. So that was question number 3. 2-mark question, and we have, you know, given justifiable, satisfactory comments over it. Now, question number 4, what is meant by elements, compounds? Now, these are very, very easy terms. But again, some students face some confusions in these terms, dealing with these terms. So, what you need to do is element. What is an element? It's a pure form. Fine. If I talk about an atom, a specific atom, let's say copper. So many copper atoms be together, which is actually visible to us. Fine. This is actually visible to us. You know, you must have seen that pure copper, or maybe pure gold, or maybe pure silver. That is what? It solely connects. It solely have all the kind of atoms belonging to maybe silver, maybe copper, or if I deal with gold, so maybe gold. If you have seen the aluminium, pure aluminium, or pure iron, again it will be having only and only iron particles into it, iron atoms, okay. So that is what an element is, which is actually, whenever I try to beat it down into smaller pieces, it will again come out to be none other than that of copper, if we concerned with copper. Okay, so that is an element. Compounds, whenever few elements they combine in a fixed ratio, I get a compound, a stable one, okay. So whenever some elements they combine in a fixed ratio to get a stable thing, that is a compound. If I talk about a mixture, mixture can be random. It can be homogeneous, it can be heterogeneous. So mixtures are basically, if I get the handful of soil from the garden, it is also a mixture. I just randomly mix anything together. Let's say, okay, see, these are the smaller chalks I have, fine. These are the smaller chalks and these are the bigger chalks I have. I just try to mix them together, fine. This is what? This is just a mixture, okay. I can separate this mixture with my hands, and that is what a heterogeneous mixture is. So anything can be a mixture, fine. In fact, the air you see around yourself, it's, although you don't see it, but yes, it's a mixture of different gases, fine. Write down the names of the two elements, copper, Ag means silver, gold, anything, whatever you like, which actually has the capability of existing alone. Two compounds can be water molecule, or can be, let's say, calcium carbonate. Yes, calcium carbonate is still in my hand. It is the chalk over here that I have. And two mixtures. Mixtures, I have given you an example. Air can be a mixture, yes. Water with some minerals can be a mixture. Soil can be a mixture. Anything, okay. Now, classify the following into elements, compounds. Now you know the definition of each one of them. You can classify it very well. See here, marble. It's a kind of a compound, yes. Calcium carbonate, I just told you. Chalk or marble, it's having one single formula. Air, it's a mixture. What kind of a mixture? Homogeneous mixture. Homo means, that means uniform phase. Phase, homo means not same. That means if you are thinking that air will be having a same gas, no. It is having different gases, but do you see oxygen getting collected somewhere? Or maybe in some region nitrogen may be more? No. I just see it uniformly throughout. That means it must be a homogeneous, that means a mixture which is non-separable, okay. Although it is separable, not with the usual physical methods. Gold, again an element. So here let me just write here, this is a compound, this is a mixture, this is an element. Brass, now brass is an alloy. First of all, you should know this. Alloy, let's say, okay, see here, if you are able to see, I have got a ring over here, fine. And this ring is a mixture of, let's say, two metals. One is copper, another is silver, fine. So that means it is becoming an alloy. And do you see that copper, more of copper on some side or more of copper whenever you go to a goldsmith, okay, maybe a jeweler, so you get some, let's say a ring or maybe some bangles. So that is not a pure form of gold, that is mixed with, alloyed with some other metal, let's say copper. Okay, so that is a kind of a mixture, and that mixture is so uniform that you are not able to recognize whether this is pure gold or not. Yes? Okay, so that is what gives us an idea that it is a uniform thing, and I just told you what is an uniform thing? Homogeneous mixture. So alloy is nothing but a mixture. Now sand must be having some stones. Yes, sand must be having some insects into it. So it's basically a mixture, a kind of a mixture, but I can just pick up the stones and separate it. Yes, separable mixture. So that means heterogeneous mixture. HM I am writing, okay, not HM because you may confuse it with these. Fine. So just a mixture, you can call it as diamond. Diamond is a pure form, right? Pure form, is it of compound or an element? So basically it is an element. Fine. Diamond, element. Graphite, element, not a compound. It's a form of carbon. Petroleum, you know, petroleum again, it has got different kind of compounds involved into it. It's a mixture. Fine. Common salt, it's simple NaCl. Yes, it is NaCl, it's a compound. Sea water, what can you say about sea water? Again, it has got a mixture of lot of minerals and all, mixture. And chalk is pure, just like the marble, but it is a compound. See? Yes, getting it? So that is how we need to classify all the things. Now that was interesting question. Yes, you may lose marks over here if you are getting confused. So just be clear with the definitions first of all. Now, question number 5. Yeah. So state the main points of the difference between homogeneous and heterogeneous mixtures. Main point of difference, I just told you. Homogeneous, it has got only one phase. Okay, I'm just dictating you over here, not going into the detail because I have told you ample amount of times in my lecture as well. So homogeneous, homo means similar, so same phase is there. That is a uniform phase, not a same phase, you can say uniform phase. Hetero means non-uniform phase. So the heterogeneous mixture, it can be, you know, the different components can be separated by different physical methods, whereas I need to employ several other techniques, some complicated techniques for the separation of different components of the homogeneous mixtures. Okay, yeah, and what can I say about heterogeneous? One more thing, the boundary lines of different phases are visible with the naked eye, whereas for the homogeneous, I cannot, you know, whenever there is a salt solution, I cannot just recognize it, that yes, these are the salt particles traveling here and there and these are the water particles. No, I cannot distinguish between the two boundary lines. Okay, so that is the main point of differences. Now, classify the following as homogeneous, heterogeneous. A similar kind of a question has come up. Now, soda water. Have you ever had soda water? Yes, you had. Maybe in some cold drink or something. Okay. So soda water, have you ever seen that soda getting dissolved in the water? No, it's a homogeneous mixture. Okay, so it is homo. Fine. Wood again homogeneous. Yes, I cannot just, you know, separate all the components of a wood. I cannot just hand pick them. No. Air, homo. Soil, hetero. I can separate different leaves which are fallen into it, different pebbles which are fallen into it, maybe manure fallen into it. Vinegar, again homo. I cannot separate the acetic acid dissolved from the water. Alcohol and water, alcoholic drinks, yes. Again what? It's a homogeneous. I cannot separate it as like that. Okay. Now, petrol and water mixture. Petrol is a kind of an oily substance. If dissolved in water, will it get dissolved? No, the two layers will be visible. So that means petrol and water, it's a hetero. Chalk and water, have you ever dissolved chalk in water? It will not get dissolved, you will still see the particles. That means I can just decant them or filter them usually, right? So that is what hetero will be. Sugar and water, again I cannot see the sugar crystals when dissolved in water, so it is going to be homo. Copper sulfate solution, again homo. Yes, we have already discussed that. Got it? Okay, that was a pretty good question now. Question number 5 has been done. Let's move on to the question number 6. Okay, 3-mark question 6 to 7. Give the main difference between the physical changes and the chemical changes. I have told you about this. Physical change, which does not involve any formation of a new compound, but here in a chemical change, a new chemical substance is formed. Physical change can be reversed, chemical change cannot be reversed. So these are little point of differences that you very well know, okay? I need not go into the detail of that. Done. Which of the following are chemical changes and which are physical changes? As per the definition, let us just check out whether I am able to do that or not. Now, a glass bottle breaking. Glass bottle has been broken. Is it a physical change or a chemical change? As per the definition, physical change can be reversed, chemical cannot be reversed. But as per the definition, no new chemical is formed when the bottle is breaking. But I cannot reverse the making of the bottle, or I can. Yes, I can. I can just melt that glass once again, go through all the process in making of that bottle again. No new substance is formed, and that is why it is not a chemical change but a physical change. I can very well reverse it, but it will take time, it will take a lot of manpower. Physical change. Coal burning in the air. Can I retrace all the entire reaction back? Can I get the coal back? No. So it is a chemical change because new chemical has been formed. Pure carbon will be obtained, ashes will be obtained, gases will be obtained. Making of a cake. Can I undo this process? Can I again have a dough in my hand? No, I cannot. Once the cake is baked, new compound has been formed by the heating process. And that is why this is also a chemical change. Wool being knitted into the sweater. Sweater knitting you must have seen. Okay, so can I undo that process? Yes, I can just, it's a kind of a knot which we do, right? I can just unknot it and get the wool back again. There is no new chemical substances formed in this process. So this is going to be a physical change. Fine, getting it? So that was question number 6, a good one. Yes, I enjoyed it. Have you? Yes, you must have. Now, question number 7. What is meant by a solution? And give 2 examples of the solution. As I told you, solution is a homogeneous mixture. First of all, you need to tell this. Homogeneous mixture. Fine. Okay. Any kind of examples? Sugar solution, salt solution, air is a solution. Alloy is also a solution. Yes. This is an interesting fact to know. Alloy is a solution. What kind of a solution? You learn it in your 11th standard. Whenever I dissolve one solid into the solid and again solidify the entire mass. So it is going to be a solution. Fine. What is a suspension? Suspension now. You know what? This solution is also known as true solution. Fine. True solution is also the name. So what we have got here is, they are asking about the suspensions also, they are asking about the colloids also. Let us see the particle differences into that. So this is going to be the important one, this particular question. Fine. Okay. There is one true solution in which I cannot see the particles. There is one colloid and there is one suspension. This has got the maximum particle size and it is visible to the naked eyes. Fine. Whereas if I talk about a colloid, the particle size is in between. In between. Fine. But these two are not proper solutions, proper mixtures, not homogeneous. This is homogeneous. Fine. Now, so suspension, now you can very well tell us what is a suspension. And can you give an example? They are asking about the examples as well. Chalk dissolved in water, soil dissolved in water, going to be the suspensions, chalk plus water. I can very well see the chalk particles dissolve, moving here and there in the water, or else soil in water, the muddy water you can say. Yes, this is also a suspension. Now if I talk about the colloid, colloid have different kind of examples. Colloidal solutions they are asking. We can talk about milk here, okay. So colloids again, they can be fogs, they can be mists, right. In fogs and mist, what is happening in the gas, in the air, some water vapor particles have been dissolved, kind of dissolved. So you don't usually see the particles, but you can see that cloudy thing, right? So that is what a colloid is. And in fact, through the mist also you must have seen those rays coming, the path of the rays. Yes, that gives us an idea that it shows a Tyndall effect, and Tyndall effect is shown by this colloid and the suspension only. So now you can very well write the definition. If still not, you can refer to my lecture. So that was question number 7, and you learnt one thing new, which is going to be the true solutions. Solutions, homogeneous mixtures, also known as true solutions. Now this is going to be interesting one. Okay. So is that completely visible to you? Okay. There are 3 liquids A, B and C having different densities. There are 3 liquids, different densities. Okay, pay attention over here. And different boiling points are also there. Liquid A and C are organic in nature. A and C are organic. Liquid B is inorganic. That means, as I told you, that whenever 2 things are having a similar nature, they will get dissolved. Whereas if they have got a different nature, they will not get dissolved. Fine. When liquid A and B are put together in a container, they form a single layer because they got dissolved. They are organic in nature. On the other hand, when the liquid B and C were mixed, they formed 2 separate layers. So you must be having an idea that whenever I dissolve oil in that, oil in water, we have got 2 separate layers. Fine. So which process will you use to separate A and B? Now A and B, that can be 2 liquids dissolved to form one single solution, pure, true solution. What is it? It can be alcohol in water. Yes, I can take that. So remember, alcohol in water, what kind of a technique do we use to separate those? So it is kind of a boiling, yes, fractional distillation. Yeah, we can have fractional distillation into it. Fractional distillation we can have. Or, see here, what they have told us, one more thing, liquid A and C are organic in nature. That means water is actually inorganic, so I cannot take this mixture right here, which I told you, this plus alcohol. No, I cannot take this. This is organic, but this is inorganic, yes. So I cannot take this mixture. So what can I do actually? Here, I can take up an example of petroleum, yes. Petrol getting separated from diesel, right? I can take this particular example as well. Fine. Now, okay, we have found out the technique. Fractional distillation, petroleum products. For petroleum products, it is very good technique used. Which method will you use to separate mixture B and C? So B and C, it's a simple mixture having 2 layers. I can just separate it from the separating funnel. Yes, it's a simple method. Okay. Name the liquids which would behave like, okay, first A I need to name, B and C. Any liquid which can behave like A, B and C. So I have figured it out, yes. A and B to be organic, I have chosen that. Another is inorganic, so B I can take it as water. Okay, so this one I can take it as water. Fine, done, okay. So this completes my entire question number 8 as well. Now moving on to the question number 9, what do we have? Okay. 3 mixtures A, B and C are obtained by stirring 3 different solids in water. I have taken 3 beakers, fine, A, B and C. 3 mixtures have been obtained with solid A, with solid B, with solid C put into that, okay. When mixture A is allowed to stand for a while, then the particles will settle down. Particles will settle down. When a beam of light is passed through it, definitely, since the particles are visible and are getting settled, it will show the path of the light through it, fine. Now it becomes visible when absorbed with the from one side of the beaker, right? We have got this. When mixture B is allowed to stand for a considerable time, even then its particles do not settle down. So here no particles will be settling. That means there is very less chance of having or for the visualization of this path of light. Now next point, mixture B, however, scatters the beam of light just like the mixture A. So as I told you, the colloids are the ones which are actually, the particles are not usually visible through the colloids. It's a kind of a hazy thing, hazy mixture, but still just like fog or mist. Still I am able to see those beam of light passing through that, fine. So this can be probably a colloid if I am not wrong. Now the particles of the mixture C do not settle down and it also does not scatter the beam of light. So this is going to be the true solution. And finally we have got the answer, this is suspension. Let's see what they are talking about. Fine. What are the mixtures A, what are the mixture B and what is C? We have got this answer. Name the phenomena exhibited by A and B which on passing the beam of light through them. What is this? Tyndall effect. Yes, these show Tyndall effect. Yes. Okay. Name one mixture in each. Okay. Name one mixture each which is like A, B, and C. So what is a suspension? Chalk plus water can be a suspension. What is a colloid? We have got different examples of colloid. I just told you. So I'm not going to tell you again. True solution you can very well make. Alcohol plus water, sugar dissolved in water, salt dissolved in water, all of these are nothing but the true solutions having single phase. Fine. Okay. So that was question number 9. Coming on to the question number 10, the last one of this series. Yeah. So the solubility of ammonium chloride in the water varies at various temperatures. So what they have actually given is, when I have got 10 degrees Celsius of temperature of ammonium chloride solution, yes, this is ammonium chloride solution in water. Solubility is, that means it is 24 grams which is soluble. As I increase the temperature of the solution, more and more ammonium chloride gets dissolved. Fine. What does it say now? What mass of ammonium chloride would be needed to make a saturated solution of ammonium chloride in 50 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius? See here, first of all what they are asking is, what is the mass of ammonium chloride, NH4Cl, is required, okay, is needed to make a saturated solution of ammonium chloride in 50 grams of water. So water they have given is 50 grams. Fine. See here as per the data what they have given. At 40 degrees Celsius, 41 grams of ammonium chloride can be dissolved. Fine. See. So solubility is 40 grams of NH4Cl will be dissolved in 100 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius. You must know this term over here. This is going to be important question. Okay. So this actually the data says this. That means 41 grams of NH4Cl at 40 degrees Celsius will be getting dissolved in 100 grams of water. What they are asking is, water now they have given is 50 grams. They are asking the amount of ammonium chloride. So simple, just the unitary method and you will get the answer. So it was a trick over here and it's a good question. That means, 41 grams of NH4Cl will be requiring 100 grams of H2. That means, fine. Okay, let me just make it other way around. Yeah. 100 grams of water will dissolve 41 grams of NH4Cl at 40 degrees Celsius. So 50 grams will require how much? Divided by 2, just the half of it. Fine. Or else you can just apply the similar unitary method, the answer will come out same. See here, 41 divided by 100 into 50. Yes, it is 2 only. So it is one and the same thing. I have just divided it by 2. So it is coming out to be 20.05 grams. Yes, is it? 20, yeah. So it is coming out to be, no, not 20 but 20.5. Fine. So that is this much amount of NH4Cl will be required to be dissolved in, because I need to make a saturated solution. What is solubility? Solubility is this much maximum amount can be dissolved. That means saturated one. Fine. So for 100 grams I needed 41 grams. For 50 grams I'll be needing half. That will be saturated. After 20.5 grams, if I want to dissolve 21, let's say, it is going to be precipitation then. Okay. What can you say about the relationship between the temperature and the solubility from the given data? We have just discussed it right now. The entire thing, what this data says, we have just discussed it. So you actually have to write the entire thing in a proper manner down in this particular answer. Okay. So that completes entire set of 10 questions. I hope everybody has got. And if not, again I'll be there, and I am just one step away. You can post any doubt on our website and I'll be clearing those doubts for you. Have a nice day.